Test professionals are under a lot of pressure to deliver testing faster, and many that I speak to are interested in knowing how to accelerate their testing, particularly for Agile and DevOps. What are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Well, I think the one big thing is waste, isn't it, today in Agile and DevOps types deliveries, and certainly one of the, obviously many different types of waste, but one of the big things that I get talked about quite often from customers is the plethora of tools that people are using. If you think about the traditional IT levels, teams, projects and portfolio layers, the portfolio layer is quite often sorted out and teams are doing whatever they're doing, but then there's a big gap, isn't there, in the middle of those two and how those come together. An issue is because a lot of those tools don't work together. We were working with Hastings Direct that have done a lot of press with us. Their quote, to paraphrase them, is that they were using one of everything and nothing talked to each other and everything was a complete nightmare. And the time that they were spending looking into these different tools, trying to find out the simplest pieces of information and trying to correlate those things is what was actually dragging them down. So they use tools like ALM Octane to sit as a bridge across those. We're not saying anymore that, you need to throw away these things and stop using what you're doing. Use what you're using, but nonetheless use tools like Octane to glue these different things together, whether that's Jira or whether that's Jenkins, CI tools, IDEs, whatever it may well be, commercial off-the-shelf packages. Octane is there. It's a modern lifecycle management tool to be able to link these things together and take out information and get that information back to you so you can make relevant decisions, hence cutting out the waste.
So back up a bit there. ALM Octane, what's that?
Well, I think it's probably fair to say that ALM Octane is probably the industry's only modern lifecycle management tool. If you think about the history and the journey that we've been on, when we first started releasing lifecycle management tools back in the mid-90s, tools like Test Director, it was all about testing. Test Director then became Quality Center because it wasn't about testing anymore. It was about the outcome of that test. It was about the quality and whether it passed or not. From Quality Center, then it moved on to application lifecycle management because it wasn't just testers, and it wasn't just quality in terms of introducing business people. It was also about developers developing tools. But this is, obviously a very waterfall type approach, which they've got. Our customers these days, obviously they are introducing Agile and DevOps methodologies, but we're talking to enterprises who have a whole mishmash of different methodologies. And it's really about having a tool that's going to support those more traditional methodologies, but also the very DevOps and the very Agile tools methodologies in that life cycle too. So Octane's a modern tool which was developed from about 4 or 5 years ago. But it's also developed in a very agile way. So I say 4 or 5 years ago, but I think we're on about release 35 now for the tool. Okay.
So, looking at Octane, for those that don't know, what do customers love about it?
Well, as I say, Octane is a very modern tool. So it's about giving, one of the things that they tried to do is make everything no more than 2 clicks away, whatever it is that you're doing. So you're going to have business people who are creating requirements, but they need to link into tests, and out of those tests, maybe defects come along. But then you've also got Agile people who are doing similar things. They've got tests and they've got defects, and it's giving everybody their unique view into their unique world, but rather than having different pots. So it's really about the different roles that people are doing and letting them use the tools to be able to get things out of it, but also linking into those different aspects. So people will be using tools like Jenkins or CI tools to actually produce builds. Information is coming from those, but then Octane can sit above those tools, link into them and understand, correlate those different builds. Those, when a test runs, maybe a Selenium test runs that Octane knows nothing about, but that build server knows something about it. So Octane can interrogate that build server, take the information out, then link it to perhaps, user stories or maybe requirements, or, understand what those defects are, and then correlate all that information together.
So you've just mentioned there several tools, and they're not Micro Focus tools. You've mentioned Jenkins and you mentioned Selenium. So are you trying to tell me that Octane's working with these as well?
Well, yeah, we part of our strategy is not to force people to use one thing or another. The fact is, people are using these tools already. In terms of Selenium, we're part of the Selenium sponsorship, so we're one of the main sponsors of the Selenium project, and we want to work with those different organisations to improve those improve the tools that are on offer.
Wow, that sounds like one of the best kept secrets Micro Focus has. Maybe we should talk about that another time as well.
Sounds a good plan.
So what give me an example of other tools that Octane can communicate with?
Well, whether it's build tools, IDE tools, CI tools, commercial off-the-shelf packages, collaboration tools, things like Slack, for instance. So maybe a Jenkins job fails, a build fails, something happens. Octane can then open up a Slack channel automatically. It knows who's the person that last submitted code because it's talking to your CI tools and your development tools. So it knows who's last submitted code. It knows why a test failed. So it can bring up that and it can give you the tools to actually understand and fix that build. Again, coming back to the waste that people have seen.
So wow, it sounds like Octane integrates to a lot of tools. What does that mean for customers?
Well, it's coming back to the visibility. So a lot of the information that people need is available in those tools. So whether it's your source code management systems or your build servers, etc., but it can take people, a whole morning, a whole day to find the information, and then you amplify that. I mean, within one branch of Octane, we're doing something like 9,000 tests every hour. What happens when those tests fail? What happens when something goes wrong with those tests and then you've got to fix it? You've got 9,000 tests an hour. If any one of those goes wrong, you've got to fix the test. You've got to understand why it failed. Octane is then finding that information out from various different tools, whether it's a Selenium test, as I say, which has failed, or whether it's something's gone wrong within the source code management system or the build server's failed, to actually identify those things and correlate the information that's within it, to give people, a huge heads up. Because like I say, it could take literally all day to find out the errors of one particular test. In my example, we've got 9,000 tests going in an hour, which is just impossible to deal with.
So is there anything else people love about Octane?
There's all sorts. I mean, in a nutshell, Octane's really helping people to accelerate delivery across traditional Agile and DevOps testing. I mean, there's a huge amount of things in there. I guess the question is, how long have you got?
Well, actually, we don't have much more time. So why don't we leave it there? And next time, why don't we pick up on how people can shift left and deliver their development projects faster?
Good plan.